Why, hello there, everyone. If you are coming back, welcome back. If you are new, well, hello. My name is T.O. Savage, and today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on the latest Kamen Rider show, Kamen Rider Geats. So for those unaware, Kamen Rider Geats is the latest Kamen Rider show that has been running since September of 2022. It's written by Yuya Takahashi, who also wrote previous series such as Kamen Rider X8 and Kamen Rider 01, which 01 having mixed reviews from people around the fandom. You know, it was understandably, people were a little nervous when it was announced he was writing Geats. But regardless, I think Geats has been an absolutely fun ride thus far. And for those who might not know what's going on, the basic synopsis, at least for the first 15, 16 episodes, is that Geats is simply, in a sense, a game show. It features, people, participants who transform into Kamen Riders who fight against these, at the time, mysterious creatures known as Jyamato, and whoever wins the game becomes something called the Desire Deity, which means that whatever you wrote on your desire card becomes reality. So if you wish for, say, I don't know, you become a millionaire, if you win the game, then you get your wish. As long as the DGP, the Desire Grand Prix, it confirms and allows the wish. Like I said, so far, Kamen Rider Geats has been a fun ride, a very, very fun ride. There's not an episode that I'd say is bad or, kind of it's whatever. Every episode has had something where it's like, oh, this is interesting. Because Geats has just been, its characters are well written, they're complex, and also the story it never takes a break. Even episodes where it seems like the story's kind of on the back burner, it's always moving forward, even if it's just as simple as character arcs. Going into deeper reasonings for why I like Geats, first of all, I'm going to start with the characters. So this year our main character is a man by the name of Ace Ukiyo, who transforms into the titular character Kamen Rider Geats. Now, the thing about Ace coming into Geats is that he's different than a good amount of other previous main riders. Recently, main riders have all kind of been the same. Likeable, but nonetheless the same. Kind of these good-hearted, well-meaning, I want to save the world type of people. Ace is very different. Deep down, he's a kind guy. But he's not above tricking people. He's not above telling people, I'm the best here, you're not gonna beat me, and that's just how that is. His cockiness at first, it comes off almost slightly antagonistic at times, the way he's able to just trick people and just be like, ha, you suck, I tricked you. There's even a time where he gets another character, he hypes them up in order for them to get into harm's way just so that he can, get something out of it. Like, it's like that. Now, as time has went on in these past, now 17 episodes, he's mellowed out a bit. Like, he's mellowed out where he's not really into tricking people as much anymore in comparison to when we started. When we started, he was very much so someone who would tell you one thing just so that you can give him what he wants, and then afterwards he'll just be like, yeah, you got tricked. Sucks to suck. Another big thing about him is his mystery, right? Like, why is he fighting? What is he fighting for? And we do get the answer around episode, 7. Basically, early on in the show, we get an answer as to what he's searching for in the grand scheme of things. But Ace is he's a very interesting main rider because he's complex, like I said, about most characters. But he's complex, and he's also different from the norm. He's not, if anything, our secondary rider is the more normal type of, main rider, whereas Ace is he's so different, and I think it just makes him more interesting because, like I said, you can tell that underneath all that urge, or not that urge, but that willingness to trick and lie and just do whatever he needs to do to win, regardless of what that means for somebody else, you can tell he cares to some extent about other people. It's not just like, oh, I don't care about other people, they suck, forget them. It's more like, I care, but my own interests overshadow how much I care. So Ace, in general, he's just a good main character, to be honest. And the funny thing is that in the first 8 episodes, he's kind of not the main character. Like he's the titular character, he's the main writer, but he's not the main character, because the main character for the first 8 episodes is actually our secondary. Our secondary writer is a man by the name of Sakurai Keiwa. Well, it's Keiwa Sakurai, but the way they say it in Japan is like last name first, so. But anyway, so Keiwa is, for the first episodes, essentially our main character. He's the guy who we see the world through his eyes, and as a matter of fact, he's sort of the focal point of the first episode, because you're following him and you're learning of this world alongside Keiwa, and that continues throughout the first 8 episodes, because two characters that are like more important than others, they know what's going on, we don't, and therefore Keiwa works as in a way, the audience surrogate. He's the guy who you can put yourself in his shoes, not 100%, but you put yourself in his shoes, and you can understand his confusion, you can understand his frustration, you can understand his urge to help others, despite being told multiple times that, hey, this is a competition at the end of the day, we should not be helping each other because we're all rivals. Regardless, Keiwa, like I said, he's more of a traditional main writer, to the point where, like, I'm surprised he's not Geats instead of being who he is. Keiwa's whole thing is that he's a 22-year-old college student who doesn't really know what he wants to do in life, and he has no real way to fully get to his goals. Because his goal is world peace, but it's kind of vague, and there's nothing that, world peace is, again, like, it's a vague concept, and there's no real details on what he's going to do to maintain that, at least at the beginning of the show. And initially, when we first meet him, he's simply a bystander. He's simply someone who, he doesn't know what's going on. He gets dropped into this world. Well, not dropped. He's always been there, but he finds out about this other part of the world that has this game about saving the world and how the world gets reset and all that. And then by the end of the first episode, he's now being drafted into said game. And the first couple episodes for him is really about his growth. Him going from someone who doesn't really like the idea and doesn't really want to fight, to being someone who understands that, hey, if you want whatever you wrote in your desire card, you have to fight. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you also can't expect others to just be okay with sacrificing whatever they want for your goals. Keiwa, going into the next DGP, which starts in episode 10, and he doesn't make his return to episode 12. It's interesting how much he's grown from the previous DGP, because in the previous game, he was just kind of there for the first couple episodes, where he was fighting, but it was always kind of like because he was forced into the situation. Whereas in episode 12, when he comes back, he fully just, his urge to fight Jyamato, or his willingness to fight, has completely changed, whereas he's not so timid. He, in fact, runs in to fight Jyamato without transforming. He doesn't have his belt or anything. He just runs in and starts fighting. Doesn't hesitate, just runs right in and starts fighting. And Keiwa is my favorite character of the show so far. He's kind of the classic main writer of, I'm a good person, good-hearted, all that. But I think there's something endearing about his personality, but also I feel like this show has done something very interesting that they haven't done in a while, which they actually question his, do-good nature. Like, there's a couple scenes where, another character tells him, like, hey, kind words doesn't fix whatever's going on. Like, it doesn't just magically fix things. And I like the fact how they show where these characters, where the way they act is wrong and where it's right. Like, Keiwa being a nice guy is good in that, in a way, he's the moral compass of the show, and he also kind of rubs off on everybody else and makes them a little more kind in the process. However, because he's so kind and good-hearted, it leads to him to being able to be tricked easily by Ace more than anything. It leads him to be tricked. It leads him to believe in people kind of just off that. And he doesn't really have the same, this is the survival game essentially, and I'm gonna win, as other characters. Again, because he doesn't want anybody to be eliminated or to die or anything. Whereas everybody else is like, they understand that, look, at the end of the day, people got to die or get eliminated. That's just how it is. Now, just like how Ace is different than the standard main rider that we had over the past couple years, Keiwa, similarly, is different from the last couple secondary riders we have through the years. Because the secondary riders recently have all, with few exceptions, have all kind of been antagonistic at one point or another to the main rider. Maybe not like outwardly like, I hate you, I don't like you, but just like they argue with the main rider a lot, you know. And Keiwa, Ace tricks him, but Keiwa, there's never a moment where Keiwa gets really upset with him. Keiwa hasn't yet, as of recording, hasn't had that moment, you know. And I think it's just like with Ace, it's a very nice change of pace. Also, another difference is that unlike the last few secondary riders, he's not part of some big group or organization who existed prior to the show. He's a regular person, like you or me, just normal. There's nothing extra about him. He's just normal. Whereas, you know, Daiji and Revice worked at an organization named Phoenix. Rentaro from Saber worked in an organization called Soda Logos. Fua from 01 was in Ames, so on and so forth. So it's a nice that our main and secondary are different than previous mains and secondaries, is what I'm getting at. But yeah, Kei was my favorite. Recently he got disrespected, but we're not going to talk about that. Next on our list of characters is essentially the main female of the show. Well, one of two. And that is a character by the name of Neon Kurama. And she, like I said, she's in a sense our main female of the show. But it's different than previous years, as I'll explain in a second. So Neon is a 18-year-old girl who comes from this rich family. You know, they run an organization. And you think that, oh, her life must be nice. She's rich. She probably wants for nothing. She has protection if she needs it in forms of bodyguards who are played by Tom Constantine, who's a longtime fan of Kamen Rider, and his character's name is John. And then his partner by the name of Ben is played by Michael K, who's also a fan of Rider. And there's a cool thing that we find out in episode 14. I won't really get into that here. But the point is, you think Neon has a very cool life. She's a streamer even. But very quickly you find out that things are not so peachy, because when we first meet her stream is about her running away for, is it under 50 or over 50? Or was it at 50? Point is, this is somewhere around her 50th time trying to escape. So right off the bat, they tell you that something, either she's just like, I want to experience things, or something's not right. And we find out that something just isn't right. Her life is not sunshine and rainbows as one would assume. Her life is actually it's not terrible, but her home situation is kind of like a downer, where it's like, oh, it's like that. And it's understandable why, without saying, well, I gotta kind of get into this. But her mother is a very controlling person, to the point where Neon doesn't even have friends. She can't have friends. She can't go anywhere without her, bodyguards following her. And the reason we learn is that Neon was captured or kidnapped as a child and held for ransom. So naturally, her mother and father don't want that again. But whereas her father is more chill, her mother is absolutely 100%, controlling. Just doesn't want Neon doing anything. As a matter of fact, hates her streaming, wants her to just take over the family business to be done with it. And it even comes to the point of like physical abuse, because Neon disappears because she's in the DGP, and basically when she comes back, her mother deletes all of her videos, and when she comes back to be like, what's going on, why is my videos deleted, and why are you putting GPS trackers in my stuff, she gets smacked, just straight smacked, and reminded of the kidnapping situation, the hostage situation. And she tries to basically tell her to hey, get back in line, follow what I say to you. And going back to Heroes being complex, the thing about it is, you may look at what her mother did and be like, oh, her mother sucks, but you understand. You don't have to agree with it, but you understand. This is not a mother who doesn't love her child. It's actually quite the opposite. She loves her, and she's worried that something like what happened when Neon was a kid would happen again. But the problem is her fear has escalated to a point where she's just controlling. She's too controlling. She doesn't allow Neon to kind of be her own woman. And that's why Neon wants to escape when we first meet her. And even by the time of the end of like the first arc of the show, that's why Neon wants to escape so bad. But enough talking about that. So Neon transforms into Kamen Rider Nago, spelled N-A-G-O, and she's a cat. She's a black and gold cat. I don't think I talk about Keiwa, but Keiwa, I didn't talk about Ace or Keiwa's rider forms, but Geats is a fox, and then Keiwa transforms into Kamen Rider Tycoon, who is a tanuki / a Japanese raccoon dog. So Neon transforms into Kamen Rider Nago, and initially when she joins the GGP, her first thing is looking for partnership. Essentially, she's immediately like, hey, do you want to partner up? Just to be rebuffed by one person and told by another, like, yeah, I'll be a partner with you. And similar to Keiwa, she's not really good at the fighting aspect. She gets used to it quicker than Keiwa, and then from that moment she starts becoming more confident in her abilities as a writer. Her wish is a world where she lives with the people she loves. Now, the thing about loves is that I feel like the term love in this case is sort of just a double meaning. It doesn't necessarily mean in this case romance. It could also just mean people that care about her and she also cares about them. Not to say she probably doesn't care about her family, but just that people who aren't as controlling as her mother, or maybe not as stoic as, say, her father is. Neon is also a very likable character because she's similar to Keiwa in temperament, but in attitude about the DGP, she's different. Because like Keiwa, she's very kind. There's not a moment where she's being rude or mean or selfish. Well, maybe not. Maybe everybody in there is a little selfish in a way or another, but she's not mean to Ace. She's not mean to Keiwa. She's not mean to anyone. There's not one person where she's mean to them and like, you suck, I don't like you. Even another character who outwardly tries to get her eliminated from the game, she shows no anger towards them. She's just kind of like, well, why'd you do that? You could have just done this other thing instead. In function, Neon is kind of different because whereas Keiwa is very selfless and is like, hey, we should all work together to do whatever, Neon is very much so someone who's like, but I have my own stuff going on and I want to win as well. Going back to what I said with Keiwa and how he's told by Ace that, look, you can't expect us to sacrifice what we want for you. And Neon and another character who we're about to get to, they basically confirm that because Neon straight up says to him, like, I got my own wishes and I want to win as well. I can't be risking that to do what you want us to do, right? But ultimately, like I said, Neon and Keiwa, of our main characters, are kind of the nicest. Like, Ace is kind too, but like I said, it's hidden to a certain extent. And then we have the other main character who we're about to get to, who's kind of on the other side of it. Not to like a antagonistic degree, but just he's a little less kind, at least a little less outwardly kind. So our fourth rider is the hothead, reckless, hard-headed, stubborn Michinaga Azuma, who transforms the Kamen Rider Buffa, obviously based on a buffalo by his personal designation. So Buffa, like I said, he's hard-headed, he's reckless, he has a temper, and he's very closed off to everyone. And he has a beef with Geats for reasons that on the surface are kind of strange, but if you actually dig deep into it, you understand in a sense. Because once you get to know Michinaga's character, you kind of understand. So Michinaga's thing when it first starts, his thing is, I hate all riders. Again, for reasons that are understandable, but just like with Keiwa, they point out the wrongness in his thinking. Because he sees all riders as the same, which isn't true. He's mad at two riders for doing something that he didn't like, and instead of saying, I want to find those two and, get revenge, he instead pushes that revenge onto everyone else who's also a rider. Which is strange because he's also a rider, so technically shouldn't he also dislike himself? But regardless, Michinaga, like everybody else, is a very complex, interesting character because on the surface, he seemed like he was going to be our classic rival, evil writer who's there to fight people, and he's probably going to turn good by the end of the series. But when the series begins, he has elements of a rival, but he's not a villain. He's just someone who is very committed to what he wants, like, you know, Ace or Neon is. As we learn, his wish is the power to destroy all writers. He doesn't care when someone gets eliminated. As a matter of fact, he sees it, at least he says this, as, oh, one less person to worry about. That's how he sees it. He's also likable in that you want to cheer him, but you also want him to get kind of, in a sense, move on from what happened in the past. You know, move on, be better. You know, these people, mostly, you know, Keiwa, Neon, and Ace, they're trying to reach through to him and get him to stop being so hard-headed, so reckless, so stubborn, and so vengeful. But he, like I said, he's very committed to, I want to take out all writers. All writers are the same to me. They're all selfish. They all sacrifice people for their own goals. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do what I need to do. Even if, realistically, I shouldn't see these, you know, these three or, you know, more as the same. I see them more differently, especially considering that when what happened in the past happened, Ace actually helped him or saved him, you know. So, like I said, but you get it. You know, if he sees all writers as the same, of course he's gonna not like any other writer because, you know, hey, you're all the same to me. But on top of that, with Geats is also the long-standing winner. You know, Ace has won for years. I'm not gonna go into how long, but he's won for years. And since Buffa's joined, he's always been second place. So naturally, he's kind of fed up with Ace, right? He's kind of fed up. Now, currently, Buffa's he's in a very interesting position. I'm not gonna really go into what happens to him, but he's still alive. But he's in a different location. Let's just put it like that. He's in a different place than the other writers. Yeah, that's our main 4 writers. Now, if I go into any other writers, it'll be after I round out our main cast. But next, we're getting into 2 members of the DGP staff. So getting into the DGP staff, we have to start with Tsumuri, who's our other main female character of the show. So Tsumuri is like, I'd say a majority of main females. They're just basically a support character. They're not, usually main females aren't a writer. We get a female writer, it's usually someone who's outside of the main female. That's why Neon is such a nice change of pace, because she's the main female and also being a writer. Similar with how Sakurai from Revice last year was also the main female but a main writer. Tsumuri is in the vein of characters like a Poppy from X-Aid, an Izu from 01, a Tsukiyomi from Geo, a Masora from Build, and a Mei from Saber, in that she's there to support the main character / characters, but she's not really there to fight. Again, this is as of now, because you never know what could happen in the future. Tsumuri could mess around, pull out a belt, and be like, I'm a writer myself, and then changes the whole game up. But Tsumuri is a very stoic individual. As she speaks very, you know, soft and kind to people. It's just, she's very stoic. And the only emotion, and this is how she does show emotion, is just her smiling or just jumping around from joy when a desired deity is chosen. On the surface, Tsumuri isn't as interesting as the other characters because she's very stoic, and we don't know a lot about her as of now. All we know is that she's the navigator of the DGP. She summons people to DGP's base of operations, which is this place called the Desire Temple that floats in the sky. She summons them there. She's like, hey, Jyamato's out there. Go fight him. Here's the rules. Yada, yada, yada. That's kind of her role. Even to now, that's kind of just her role. And even her interactions with Ace, while I would love to get into them, and also how she interacts with the next character, there's no way to really do that without getting too much spoilers. So all I'll say is she definitely, as time goes on, shows a little more personality. And, you know, overall, it's something where, like, I don't like her as much as, say, a Keiwa or an Ace or a Neon or even a Michinaga, but she's a character who is, like, whenever she shows up, I'm always interested in, like, what she's doing, you know? Especially considering that she knows stuff that she doesn't say. She knows more than she lets on. So it's, you know, she's very interesting. But Next character. So next up in the DGP staff, we have a character by the name of Girori. He's on the surface, and I can't really say too much about him because it's getting into spoilers, and I'm trying to keep this as spoiler proof as possible, or at least if I do say spoilers, I'm trying to make sure it's only small stuff. Like, for example, with Neon and her mother, it's not something that's a big, huge spoiler, in that we know she's trying to run away from home. We know that. So it has to be something going on, right? Or at least I still see it's a big deal. You might see it as a big deal and whatnot, but but with Girori, there's something going on with him that I was about to say something else, but then that in itself would be a spoiler. But there's something going on with him that is very, it bends the game, and it's like, oh, whoa, what's going on here? But when we meet Girori, he's, like I said, he's a simple character. He's the concierge of the Desire Temple. So essentially, there's this lounge area that the riders can chill in between rounds or missions. Regardless, when we first meet him, he's just this guy who's kind of like, hey, here's the rules of this place. Don't get into fights, because that's against the rules. You'll be eliminated. He makes food and drinks for everybody. Essentially, he's just there at first, and it's not until later, like early on in the show, that they kind of reveal some stuff that's like, oh, that's okay, that's complex. But like I said, on the surface and without saying too much, he's a very kind of, he's a whatever character on the surface. When you initially meet him, he's just kind of there. But if you do watch Geats, keep your eye on him. That's all I'm going to say. But speaking of characters to keep their eye on, we have to get into the kind of the last DGP staff member we meet early on in the show, So yeah, let's get to that. So finally, in terms of the DGP staff, we actually have the Game Master, who's a character we weren't introduced to when the show was first revealed to us, but it's a character we're running to at the end of the first episode. And as the name kind of implies, they are at least the person who watches over the DGP and the person making all the rules and whatnot. They're a masked character, and they just kind of, they just chill out. Just chill out, watch the DGP, watch the worlds unfold, and it's just like with Girori and Tsumuri, on the surface, there's nothing really interesting about them, especially with the Game Master, because the Game Master's just there. He's just there. Yeah, that's it. Like, there's nothing more to say about the Game Master without getting into spoilers and whatnot. So, yeah. Okay, so first off, in the land of characters who I want to give special mention to is a character by the name of Hareyuya, I think, who transforms into the pumpkin-themed Kamen Rider PunkJack. And when he's first introduced, he's introduced as a mute character. Basically, we're told right from the jump that initially he can't talk, he can't show his face, anything. So essentially, what PunkJack does initially is he just stands there. He just stands there, he looks around. That's all he really does. No words are said. He can fight, but he doesn't speak or anything. But then, when we get to the end of the second in-show DGP, we get to the end of the second one, we're revealed to who he is, and then we get further context for him in the following DGP and the following couple episodes. So similarly to other characters, I'm not really going to go into much with spoilers, but just know, the reason he can't speak is because he's part of the DGP staff. That's basically all I can say. That's basically all I can really say without implicating some things and other things. The point is, he's a very interesting character, because when you first meet him, he's obviously plotting. Then, next time we see him, he acts like, oh, I'm just a bumbling idiot who's in love with Tsumuri. Don't question me. No, I'm not the same PunkJack. What are you talking about? But, obviously he's the same PunkJack. But, yeah, that's, he's another character who's like special mention to, because he was just so interesting, And then on the problems, I'm not really gonna go into like much detail with these other characters, but we have other writers from like the first arc of the show, which is Kamen Rider Ginpen, whose real name is Takahito Taira. He's a penguin. We have Morio Koganea, who transforms to Kamen Rider Mary, who's a sheep. And then we have Kanato Sumida, who transforms into Kamen Rider Dapan, who is a panda. Itetsu Tanba, who transforms into Kamen Rider Kalo, who's an owl. Then we have Yuki Yaginuma, who transforms to Kamen Rider Letter. She is a goat. And the other riders, I can't really get into them without spoiling some stuff. So that's basically it for characters, really, at least for the first arc or so. Anybody else would just be kind of jumping into spoilers and whatnot, and that's not the point. Even though this is my thoughts on Geats so far, so theoretically I should be able to talk about them, but I kind of wanted this to just be sort of this overall kind of, here's what I think about kind of the main cast. But, you know, in effort of saying my thoughts on Geats so far, there's of course other characters. There's a character by the name of Narama Samas, who also worked in the DGP. There's a dude by the name of Archimedel, who does stuff, you know, in relation to the DGP. We'll put it like that. And of course you got the Jyamato themselves, you know. Oh, also you have Neon's dad, who also related to DGP. And then you have the Jyamato themselves. Now Jyamato, when we're initially introduced to them, the Jyamato are mysterious because we don't know where they came from. You don't know where they came from initially, you know. Later on, by now we know what's going on, but at first it's like, where are these guys coming from? The Jyamato are, you know, they're themed on plants and chess pieces. So the plant design is, you know, if you look at their individual designs, you can actually see the plants, you know, vines, grass, cactus, prick things. And the chess theme comes in when it comes to how they're designated, because there's different levels of Jyamato. So far we've been introduced to 4 levels of Jyamato: pawns, knights, rooks, and bishops. Obviously, if you know chess, you know there's also a king and queen Jyamato type, or should be anyway. I'm interested to see what they do with that when we get there. If we do get there, I'm pretty sure we will. I'm interested to see if like the king and queen Jyamato will be just like the others, will be types, or the overall type, and then there'll be different versions, or if the king and queen will be kind of the big league Jyamato, where it's like we lead them. Like I said, the Jyamato come in different types. Pawns are the most frequent Jyamato, and they're usually the ones that the riders fight on a game-to-game basis. And every game, well, almost every game, they change their design to fit the current game. So, for example, when it was a zombie game, they were zombies. When it was a game about concentration / cards, they turned into cards, essentially. You know, stuff like that. It's the same way in a sense with rooks, bishops, and knights. Those 3 are the higher level Jyamatos. They're kind of like your monsters of the week, if you would. The monsters who they aren't the grunts. They're just monsters who are more powerful and usually the main focus. But, you know, again, so they're more powerful, and they also come in different types. But we've seen, for knight and bishop, we've seen 1 type. For rook, we've seen technically 2 types. We've seen a rook who's the leader of like this group of, like, for lack of a better term, gang Jyamato. And then we have a standard rook Jyamato. So that's all we've seen. But yeah, that's a Jyamato. And there's also some other stuff, but just like with other characters, I can't really talk about it without, you know, spoiling it. But it's interesting when you see it and you're like, oh, that's crazy. But, you know, yeah, that's essentially it character-wise. Oh, there's also Keiwa's sister, Sarah. I forgot to mention it back then. He lives with his sister. You know, it's his older sister. And she's kind of, I mean, what role does she really serve? I mean, she's kind of someone who gives Keiwa kind of motivation, I guess. Especially during, like, the last couple episodes of the second DGP we see. So, like I said. But I believe after that, there's no more characters that I really want to talk about at the moment, who I can get into without spoiling stuff. Oh, I forgot. There's also another type of Jyamato called Castle Jyamatos. And they're just big, like, slug plant flower things with castles on their backs. They're like big bosses. So you see one in the first episode, you see another one later on in the series. But yeah, that's it in terms of characters. Like, there's nothing else I can really talk about I really want to talk about without getting into like spoilers and whatnot. So yeah, that's essentially my thoughts on the character on Geats so far. So going back to the initial point of this video, going into how I feel about Geats, I think that so far Geats has had a very strong start. That it hasn't really gotten bad at all. But overall, I'd say Geats has been a fun ride thus far. Now, will I make another video when we get a little further into the show? Maybe. Maybe I'll just make one at the end and just wrap up with my overall thoughts on the show. And that one will probably be spoilers because, at that point I'll want to kind of get into why. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Geats so far. It's a good show, has interesting characters, even characters who aren't interesting on the surface. Please understand I am saying what I'm saying because I'm trying not to spoil certain things that happen later on. So certain characters, when I say they're boring or they don't have much going on, that just means there's nothing that I can talk about at the moment that I can say, yeah, this was interesting. Because it gets very interesting. Like, the show gets much more interesting once you learn why Ace is doing what he's doing and why other characters, who initially seem like they don't have anything going on, actually have more going on, all that kind of stuff. So like I said, Geats overall, good show thus far. I don't know if it's my favorite of the Reiwa era, but it's definitely good so far. And I really hope it keeps the momentum and doesn't fall off a cliff like some people expect it to because it's a writer. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna just end it here. That was my thoughts on Kamen Geats. If you liked this video, please, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell that tells you when I upload. Hopefully this is a lead to a more constant upload stream instead of going like, hey, I'm gonna upload more and then disappearing off the face of the map for 5 years. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. I don't really post on Instagram, but Twitter, I'm always on it, so you'll get annoyed with me very quickly if you follow me on Twitter because I tweet all the damn time. And also there's Twitch, but I don't do anything on Twitch, at least not at the moment, so you can go there if you want. Links are below, all that. So yeah, that's it. So until next time, I've been yours truly, TL Savage, and I'll speak to you another time.